Right, good afternoon. So yes, my name is John Ireland. I am, get your gauge, about 5'11". I have what's left of brown hair as I head into my 50s, now greying and short. This afternoon I'm wearing a sort of a check chestnut shirt and glasses. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about our journey of implementing ITIL at the University of Oxford. And it's a bit about the journey of ITIL in relation to the university and a bit about ITIL in relation to my journey and my career. So I've always been in IT. I think just after my GCSEs I got paid for my first ever bit of software and never looked back, despite my parents trying to put me off this career that was never going to pay very well. And I think my mother even thought it wasn't honest. She did a bit of database testing and thought that just trying to break stuff wasn't a genuine career. Most of my time I've spent working in the University of Oxford in one way or another. I started as the IT manager at Jesus College in the late 90s, spent about 10 years there, and then moved into the Central University and have had a whole bunch of roles. I've had my finger in every IT pie. I've written software, I've done the training, I've written the strategies, I've installed the optic fibres, I've written the server systems and put architecture in place, I've managed security. And so I've got to see a whole range of different perspectives and how ITIL actually fits into those. So what I'm going to share with you today is, I think we've got time to look at 4 particular scenarios, little vignettes, stories. And to be honest, each of these stories I could talk to you about for at least half an hour. I'm going to try and cram all 4 of them into one slot. I'm going to have a look at those and think a little bit about, or take out of them, how you can apply ITIL in a flexible and adaptable way. It doesn't have to be a one-size-fits-all big bang approach. And also go back to that piece that Adam talked about right at the start of the day, which was, is ITIL something that can stay relevant in a field like IT that changes so quickly? We're constantly reinventing, constantly taking on new things and constantly dealing with new challenges. So does it really keep up? Bit of background, the University of Oxford, for those of you that don't know it, and Faith from University of Birmingham had to explain University of Birmingham, not Birmingham City. Gareth is here from Oxford Brookes University. I'm from the other Oxford University, the one down the hill. We have had a number of collaborations over the years, but the university that I'm in, the University of Oxford, it's actually about 15,000 undergraduates, 15,000 graduates, largely on site. We've got about another 15,000 people, 50-50 across the research and academic side of things and the support and professional services staff. We are a research-led university, so research is kind of at the core of what we do. Organisationally, we're divided into 4 academic divisions, and within those there are about 60 departments, faculties or schools, and then famously are separate colleges, separate legal entities, and there's a huge amount of, we call it federation. That might be how you describe the academic organisation, but thinking about the governance patterns that Dimitri just shared, actually the IT side of it is totally autonomous. Those 60 or 70 odd IT teams can completely do whatever they want. We have about over 200 buildings. That's just around the Oxford city campus and so on. We say city campus. We're not a campus-based university. We have buildings scattered all over the city and outside the city. And our academics and our students are active worldwide, along with a number of our research partnerships. So we have quite a broad outreach. And the term that we often use to talk about IT management at Oxford is cat herding. So my journey starts back in about 2007. I'd been working at Jesus College for about 8 years at this point. When I started, I was the IT guy. I turned up in the morning, my predecessor had left the little red book in the reception area, and anybody who had a problem wrote it in the red book, and my job was to go and tick it off as I sorted it. We quickly moved to an online system, and we're dealing with about 17,000 support calls a year by the time we got to 2007. Now this is for an Oxford college, so about 500 students, 100 academics, similar number of professional services and domestic staff. And IT was no longer the curio, where the pioneers had a computer and wow, isn't it amazing, I can do this stuff. Everybody had a computer, and I've got to use it today because it's the only way to get my work done, and gosh, what a pain. So we were getting a lot of support calls logged in our ticketing system, and there were complaints. Academics in particular, the fellows in the college, why does everything take so long? Why do our support calls not get picked up immediately? We think the IT team should have a pager so that when we have a call, we can page them and they can run across from whatever they're doing and sort it out. That would be great, wouldn't it? Meanwhile, the IT team, there was me and 2 people by this point. We thought we were working hard, we thought we were doing a great job, and we were really frustrated it wasn't translating into a good experience on the other side. But at the same time, we didn't feel that pages were the right answer. And so I went up to Quanta and took my ITIL v3 foundation. ITIL v2 was still hugely popular. People who did ITIL 2 were still talking about its 2 strands and all that stuff. ITIL v3 was the new thing. But as I sat there, hearing about the service operations side of things, and someone earlier mentioned the IPCR chain, so incident, problem, change and request, the penny dropped for me that the problem was we were just bundling all of our calls in together. All these different types of requests that were being made to us were just getting lumped in together. And nobody really understood which were the most important ones to tackle with and what the expectations were around those. Now, we were using a ticketing system, not an ITSM tool, a ticketing system, one of those old beasts. Has anyone here come across Request Tracker or RT? Oh, you have? Oh, so I'd finally got to somewhere that people didn't go, oh, wasn't it great? It was better than a shared mailbox. Anyway, we added a field on so that we could classify the calls. So we could look at and report different stats for incidents. I like talking about turnaround time in terms of post office delivery timescales. Did the issue get resolved on the same day it was reported, the next day, a few days later, or longer than that? We were also able to look at requests. So the standard things we said, you can have a new application, you can have a new PC, you can have, I don't know, printer cartridge change or something, and we tell people roughly how long that could be expected to take, and we could measure this and actually report back to them that I think even back then 95% of those were going through in their scheduled time frame. And then changes, the academics that pitch up. Bearing in mind this was early 2000s, I've got an application in Visual Basic that creates a graph of some weird mathematical algorithm. Can you make that work on somebody's mobile phone that only has WAP access? So we were able to report on, within a reporting period, how many changes have been completed versus how many have been raised and that kind of thing. And we started sharing it with a working group that had been set up to look at this problem of slow IT. And what the initial feedback? You must be wrong. You must be fudging the figures. So we shared the figures and everybody had a good old pore over them and eventually realised that there wasn't any fudging going on. And in fact, they could see everything. They could see every call we dealt with if they wanted to and discuss whether we had the right priorities, whether we were dealing with things fast enough, or whether in fact demand was just outstripping supply. But it led to better conversations. It led to better understanding from the customer. Going back to that thing of, do we explain why things took the amount of time they took and different types of calls? You could expect different timescales of response. And the perception improved actually really quite quickly. Within 2 months of sharing regular reports on that, the working group was disbanded because the fellows had better things to spend their time on than discussing IT support. Thank goodness. One of the reasons that I actually took the ITIL course was I'd started to look for another job. And every job that I looked for said, you need ITIL and you need Prince 2. So I got the 2 of them and moved all the way across to another bit of the university. The colleges in Oxford have a really good professional community. I was attending one of these at the point that news of my move was starting to circulate. And people came up to me and said, John, do you know what that team is that you're going to manage? You have heard of them, you do know what they do. That team is unmanageable. How are you going to approach them? We know that you like process-based stuff. We know that you like transparency. We know that you like being able to talk with customers and users. What on earth are you going to do there? I will say, qualification, possibly the best job of my life. It was an absolutely fantastic team and their dedication was amazing. They were deeply technical, supremely knowledgeable. They built Linux-based infrastructure. It was something I developed quite a big interest in. Amazingly effective, but ridiculously eccentric. Difficult to work with was the phrase that people used. For those of you that have heard of the IBM Black Test team, the team that you feared your software going to because they would break it every time, they were likened to that team. People feared having conversations with them. And in fact, a previous manager had ended up being moved into a different role because the team just wouldn't accept them. They were very, very dependent on individuals who knew best how to solve every problem. And if you came in and said, I've got this new management technique, they would explain technically why it was never, ever going to work. So how did ITIL help? Because ITIL, this is ITIL 3, right, with 26 processes. I think, Adam, it was you and me had a conversation in the corridor. Is it 26 or 27? What are they saying? What are they saying on Facebook? Back in the days of Facebook. So the processes were there. And coming into this team, day one coming into this team, welcome to your office, John. There's your computer. The team have rearranged the keyboard into a Dvorak layout because it's faster for typing. And they've taken the RAM out of it, your computer, because the developers need it more than the managers. Good fun. But armed with that set of processes, I could look at what the team was doing and very quickly work out, my goodness, they are brilliant. All the stuff that's in the details, right? Configuration management, security management, all the bits to do with event management left, right and centre. Systems reported every few seconds what they were doing. We had dashboards, they had security reports coming in. And they really had their DR stuff well sorted and their understanding around resilience, dual sighting in early days of doing that kind of thing. It was an amazing team in that level. But you talk about business skills or strategy, the relationships, the understanding of, are we delivering the right things? And it was a very different story. And in fact, one of the key things with the team here, they also used Request Tracker. They logged all their things that they called incidents in there. The oldest one, 4.5 years old. And I said to them, why is that still open? Oh, we haven't fixed it yet. But the person who raised the call left the university 3 years ago. There's no point fixing it. They just didn't have this big picture of understanding the difference between doing work or doing work efficiently and being productive. And it meant that their support call queue was just full of croft. They couldn't see the wood for the trees. So focusing on some tactical improvements here. Bear in mind, this is a technical team. It was about 8 people large when we started. And we talked about this whole piece of what's the purpose of logging these things in the first place. It could be that you need to get somebody back to work. They're stuck, they can't work, in which case 4.5 years is not okay. Tomorrow might be more time than they can tolerate. So we talked about that side of it and actually managed to clear it back immensely. The other we'd really like to have a why that you don't offer at the moment. So by introducing a little bit of recording those suggestions, feeding them through a continual service piece and reviewing periodically and using change management to help make the decisions transparently and in a bigger context, helped them clear more stuff off so they could see the wood for the trees. They were also running services because 3 people were still logging in on a regular basis in a university of 30,000. We suggested that they turned some of those off. In fact, in one case, we actually gave somebody a computer, so the job they kept asking us to do, they could do it themselves. And that freed up quite a bit of time for the team. They weren't having to worry about all these old legacy things. They were able to bring new services in. We introduced a large file sharing service and a new way of logging in for the university. One of those systems, at least, is still in use now after 17 years. The other was turned off 2 years ago because OneDrive has finally covered most of the functionality. And the interesting thing from that was, well, certainly my experience was that as senior management saw us actually getting a grip of what we were doing and focusing on the right things and being able to do it efficiently and effectively, their trust in us grew and more teams were merged into the area that I was looking after. So by the time I finished, the team had doubled in size, we'd specialised and we had a server team and an identity management team, and those teams have lived on since I moved out of that area. So ITIL really, really helpful when you're going into a new area, wanting to get to grips with things, and also as a way of creating visibility and building confidence, because it's all transparent. You can report on stuff. I actually only did that job for 3 years because then we were told that our department, and this is classic for Oxford University, our department, one of 3 central IT departments, was going to be merged with the other 2. The reorganisation. I was asked to be the programme manager for this and working with across 3 departments that had very, very different cultures. The area that I'd been in focused on academic services, network infrastructure, cross-city services, infrastructure side of things. There was a business systems and projects area, and there's an area that created a managed desktop for about 2,000 members of staff. Completely different cultures, completely different ITSM backgrounds, very different ways of funding it. Seemingly incompatible areas to bring together, but it was crucial as we went through the merger that we didn't drop or mess up any of the big projects that were in place, so replacing our finance system, introducing a new student record system, and we needed to keep all the services running. And a key part of this, the kind of drivers around this change, were improving the governance measures that were in place, so creating transparency about what we were doing, increasing efficiency and performance, and around creating a consistent experience for end users. We had Just across those 3 departments, we had 5 help desks, and another 4 new help desks were envisaged at the time to cover specific things for each of our core business systems. So there was an awful lot of stuff going on, an awful lot of complexity for people, and everybody worked in a different way. So if you had a problem with the HR system today, that would be handled in a completely different way to if you had a problem with the finance system. It was a bit tricky for staff. As part of the programme, we looked at a number of areas in work streams. So we had a kind of a finance and governance work stream, we had an HR work stream, we had a communications and branding work stream. And we managed to convince the university, going back to our thing about did you do it strategically or did you do it as failure demand, that we needed to have an ITSM work stream as part of figuring out how the new department of 350 people was going to work. And they bit the bullet. We did get a work stream in there, and one of the core projects around forming the new department was based on setting up some core processes. We did an ITIL-based maturity review across 3 existing departments, because of course everybody thought they were doing this bit better than anybody else. Because it was ITIL, we were able to get somebody external in, so it was seen as impartial. People accepted the report. They all had something that was working well. They all had a lot of things actually that were perhaps not working as well as they could. And we also used standard pieces of ITIL to look at how we would pitch up our service management approach, so our operating model for that, and also how we tackle this thing of so many different help desks. And it was really tricky because we did want people to be able to phone directly through to someone who knew the HR process as well as the HR system. So don't go to an IT help desk and get told, oh yeah, that's an HR process issue, we'll bounce you off here and bounce you off there. We wanted people to go as directly as possible to the solution for their problem. And looking through the guidance that you used to get back in those days around the service desk function, now the service desk practice, was really helpful in putting all of that together. We also even managed to consider things like, we're a 24/7 operation. Do we need to have a different way of actually staffing that so that we can provide round-the-clock support? And the data that we had from tool sets very quickly enabled us to take that forwards. So early 2015, we actually went live with an implementation. We ran a service desk consolidation project. Funnily enough, our newly formed service management office couldn't get their business case through to secure funding to implement any ITIL processes at all. That's the service management office. But I was coming in as director of customer services by that point, and I said, well, I'm building a service desk. I have to implement processes. Here's your funding. So interesting lesson there. Think about making sure it's a useful use case, not doing things for the kind of theory side of it. Tack some clear value onto whatever you're doing. We prioritised the user experience. We recognised that our complex organisation couldn't just stick a tool in and solve a problem. We actually needed to start with, why are we doing this? What's the user experience? What are the teams involved and how are they going to work together? What are the processes they need to understand to be able to work together? And therefore, what's the tool that we're going to put in and how it's going to be configured? And an interesting thing, going back to Adam's earlier piece about it's not just about service desk, when we whittled our tool selection down to the final 2, just thinking who's in the room, who may have experienced some of that, we actually left the final decision to our infrastructure teams, even though the tool would be primarily used by our service desk. And it created a lot of buy-in and acceptance of the tool, which has been very useful 10 years later, when we get to remind them that the tool that they now hate was the tool that they chose. We actually went for a SaaS solution. It's been brilliant, and it stayed up to date and had loads of new features put in. It's just that we use it so intensively, it is, as ever, become the tool that you have to use for every job you don't want to do. We put in incident management, request fulfillment, and change management because those were some of the most mature processes, the ones that we needed continuity, and the ones that would have the biggest impact on the user experience and the efficiency. That worked well. We had a lot of pushback from some of our staff. Oh, you're going to put these processes in place. We're not going to use human wisdom anymore. We're just going to be following scripts, and that's going to be really bad for the university. We were fortunate enough to be going to events like this where you get to meet people from other organisations. We had some fantastic visits to Co-op, Auto Trader, law firm, and Buckingham Palace to go and see how they do IT support. And our teams could just see these people who were working there in harmony, taking calls very quickly and efficiently because they knew what the steps were that they were going to go through, and were therefore able to apply more of their human wisdom because they could get down to the nuts and bolts of it really, really quickly. And the team came back quite energised about that, and the transition from a service desk side went really, really smoothly on that front. We now have 16 departments using our system. We have about 8 direct points of contact, so specialist service desks if you like, as well as a generalist one that can pick all those bits up. We've got processes in there for all the individual colleges and departments to work with us if they want to. They don't have to use the same system because they've got that level of autonomy, but it works really quite well. We've also expanded out, as you might expect, quite quickly into major incident. That happens straight after you put incident in, right? We also had a data centre with a flaky aircon unit, so that was needed. And we've got a much richer problem management process. Some of you may have heard other talks by one of our colleagues who's recently retired, Andrew Dixon, who did a lot of work around the problem management process and put activities in for us that are working really well. And we've got quite a rich transition planning and support piece. So as projects get to the end, what do they need to do ready for their outputs to be picked up in service life? The most exciting bit for me, though, the last point, using reporting, not recognised in its own right until ITIL 4 said, oh, this is a practice. It used to cut across all things. Reporting is absolutely crucial. You've got an ITSM tool collecting huge amounts of data. What are you doing with it? We actually started using quite a lot of automation and additional tools to share reports about performance, what was going on. Funnily enough, those post office reports of incident management, we publish them every year so people can see what the big picture is. We send them out to our teams every week and every month at different levels so people can track progress and manage it. But reporting has been incredibly useful for us in terms of building strategies and working out what the next steps are to continuously improve our services. That takes us up to almost today. So the last chapter of this book so far, New Frontiers, yet to be finished. The University of Oxford, like so many other places, is undergoing digital transformation. Now it's so bedded in that it doesn't even have capital letters, it's just digital transformation. This is our new way of working. And in particular for IT, this is around the planned adoption of agile, product mindsets and lean principles, thinking about DevOps, all of those good things, and rejigging our governance and funding model. Governance changes have gone through. That's been fine. They've worked really well. They've made it much clearer for the governance bodies in the university to focus resources on education and on research in a way that they didn't have before. But from the IT side of the organisation, there's loads of energy around the agile side. All of our project teams that are putting this in place for us, changing us. There's loads of energy about it. We understand what ITIL is. It's a methodology, and we can go on training, very, very good training. Those of you that haven't done the raising of the HMS Terror, it's a fantastic activity. So that's been really great. But when we start talking about product management in a university, people really struggle with the concepts. I mean, I've been told before that we are not a business and we don't have customers. So that's a bit difficult for a product concept because that's kind of two of the key things that it's anchored on. And of course, there's a lot of anxiety from the service side. You're moving to agile and product is all about development. What's going to happen to me in my role as a service owner or a process owner? Is my job still going to be here? So we have been trying to reassure people that actually this is building on top of the good stuff that's already done. Thankfully though, ITIL and its evolutions, ITIL 4 has come up with some timely updates. In particular, ITIL 4 introduced, I don't think particularly clearly, but introduced the separation between product and service. And from what I've seen today, ITIL 5 has managed to build on that very neatly and tackled actually some of the challenges that cropped up for us around this. The principles in ITIL 4 have been really good for guiding us as we work through this. So thinking about focusing on value, this is exactly what Lean is talking about. Develop iteratively, well, that's perfect harmony with our agile approach. Thinking about the collaborative feedback and taking a holistic view. Well, this is the product management piece. It's thinking about end-to-end life cycles of things and how they affect people when those things are out there. It's really cleared up some of the challenges that we've had around applying ITIL in the past and worked really well with the new approach with these frameworks like Agile, DevOps and Lean, all those sorts of things which ITIL has talked about and touched on for a long time, but now increasingly are being recognised as valid things to do in their own right. ITIL doesn't have to sort of tell you how to do this. You can go and look at the Agile methodology and do it, and ITIL will now tell you how it interfaces and how you can make use of that in your service side. We also, because we'd used an ITSM approach, we had clear structures and processes, so actually thinking about the impact of these changes was much easier. We understood where we were starting from, which was really helpful. And recognising that we've got two different operating models in there. We've got a product operating model where we're using Agile and developing products and churning them out and getting them onto live infrastructure, and the service and operations side that's then looking after the people consuming those products further down the line. So it's kind of working for us. There are lots more steps to be taken. As I say, this chapter is still being written. We've been undergoing this for, I think, about 18 months since we were given the Agile blueprint. I think everybody's expecting it to be at least another 3 years before we can say we've really got to the point that we were hoping to with this piece. But the key point here is that the evolution of ITIL has meant that from those early days for me back in 2007 going, oh, I need to sort out my service desk stuff with incident and request and change, it's developed and sort of added in that content that has spoken to the development of our organisation. So, 4 scenarios, 4 very different scenarios. A team of 3, a team of 8, a team of 350, a team of almost the whole university by the end. And the ability to apply ITIL tactically. So you can apply it to just one team. You can apply just a couple of practices. You don't have to do the whole thing at once. You don't have to solve the whole problem. And I know this is one of the challenges that you sometimes get when you're trying to put new things in. The organisation says, we can't deal with all of that. Our staff are so busy they can't take it all on. Well, you don't have to take it all on. Just do the bit that's going to help. And going back to that point about relevance, as I say, ITIL has evolved continuously. Even ITIL 3 had, was it 3, Adam? 3 revisions? Shipped in 2007, we had 2011, 2014, 2017. So it's sort of been kept up to date, and some of the stuff that's fitting into ITIL version 5 now is looking really exciting. We've just set up an AI governance group. They started meeting just before Christmas. As you can imagine, in an academic institution, where does AI fit? Can students ask Copilot to write an essay for them? No, of course they can't. Can they ask Copilot to suggest additional reading to help them pad out their essay? That's probably quite a good idea. So lots of thinking around where AI is going to fit with us as a business actually doing research and education, not just how do we fit it into automation and tooling. So we're looking forward to that. I also think that the extra clarity around product and service is going to be really exciting, and I'm looking forward to probably my first practitioner level exam. So as ITIL has evolved, you've got iterations. You don't have to throw away what you've done before. You get to build on it. That's been really good. And we are looking forward to this new guidance. I think that's probably us. Yeah, there we go. And a few little pictures on the way through. I thought, it's going to be an afternoon session, a few little pictures of the university. We do get to work in a very beautiful place. And the fact that it's spread across the city means we get through a lot of shoe leather, don't we, Riaz? Walking around to different places to see everybody. But there we are, a little vignette, some practical scenarios there from me. I hope that's been interesting, maybe sort of prompted some thinking about, oh yeah, that's helpful, that might help us with what we're doing, or that's reassuring we did the same, or we did it differently and we know why. But I will hand you back now to Jacob.
Got time for a quick question?